Okay, you want to go ahead and double this?
Hi.
Sitting here.
All right, welcome to the
And it's here.
the February 2023 meeting for the Arlington Landmark Review Board, and start off, I guess, with the call to order and call.
Great. So please respond here if you're present this evening. John Aiken.
Here.
Murray Davis.
Here.
Robert Dudka. Alex Foster.
Here.
Carmela Ham.
Here.
Gerald Laporte. Joan Lawrence.
Here.
Robert Medin. Rebecca Meyer.
Here.
Katie Myers.
Here.
Mark Turnbull. Andrew Wenschel.
Here.
And Dick Woodruff.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
And Carmela, I just want to confirm we can hear you this week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Clearly.
Good, fantastic. So, move on to explanation of the public hearing previews. We kind of do this every term essentially. So again, welcome to this week's meeting, or this month's meeting rather. The effective September 1st, 2022, new state legislation now requires certain county-approved boards and commissions, including the HALRB, to have an in-person forum to conduct some business. HALRB hearings are provided in a hybrid environment, both in person and streamed online. Members of the public may attend and participate either virtually or in person. Members of the board and members of the public joining us this evening. Today's meeting is available streamed from the county website via Teams. There's also a dial-in option for those who wish to do so. If board members, presenters, or speakers lose connectivity in today's meeting, please reconnect via phone. Please keep your device muted and be turned off until you are called on to speak. The public speaker is not sponsoring items on the agenda. Pre-registration online at today's hearing was required, and speaker slips are available for those in the room, and there are people in the room currently. So let's see where that. And the meeting chat is active for business and technical advice only. It should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions about the agenda, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during signed public testimony. All voting will be done by call of the roll. And lastly, the public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, subject to the Freedom of Information Act. It's kind of our standard rundown. And now we'll take a moment to review the meeting minutes from last month. Are there any questions or comments or corrections?
Yeah, I have a question. On the second page, I think it was somebody else who asked if the money would roll over to the next year. Was that Jerry? Or, I mean, I don't remember asking it, but
Might be me.
if you.
I'm pretty sure it was you,
Okay, all right. That's fine.
from what I remember.
The other part, it's fine. I remember that, but, okay.
I can re-listen to the recording, but I think it was.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to question. Thank you.
Comments or concerns about the meeting? Hearing none, I move we approve meeting minutes from January 2023. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Call the roll.
Okay, so please respond yes if you support the draft minutes. Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Ham?
Yes.
Excuse me, I was not there.
Oh, okay, so
Abstaining.
you're abstaining, no problem. Ms. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Wenschel?
Here.
You support the
yes.
minutes? Yes, okay. And Mr. Woodruff?
Here.
Okay, the motion carries.
They were struggling.
Contagious. There you go.
Should have had coffee.
Oh, seriously. So moving down the line here. Next is the is public hearing for the COAs on consent agenda. Is there any concerns or questions about the consent agenda item this week? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda from?
I move that the HLMP approve the consent agenda. Second item on the consent agenda. I'll second that.
All right, so please respond yes if you support the consent agenda. Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Ms. Ham,
yes,
Ms. Lawrence,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Winchell,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodruff.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Fantastic, okay. Now on to the meat of the order here, discussion agenda. And the first one here is 2017 North Kenmore Street.
Great, okay, so before I do my presentation, can I confirm that some representatives for the item are here, the Schmidts or Ms. Fitzharris?
TR and Becky Schmidt are on the line.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Heidi Fitzharris is also here, calling in.
Thank you. Okay, so the pre-1937 contributing one-story dwelling at 2317 North Kenmore Street is described in the 2003 Maywood National Register nomination as follows. The three houses at 2311 through 2317 North Kenmore Street were initially constructed according to identical plans. They are asymmetrical buildings executed in brick veneer with off-center front gables and a central round-arched entrance with stone surrounds. In May 2022, the HLRB approved COA 2214 to replace an existing original rear addition with a slightly larger addition and to add a stoop in the rear and expand the existing rear slate patio. The applicant also applied to install a new air conditioning unit at the southeast corner of the property. The applicant is proposing now to raise the ridge line of the home by 4 feet to conform to the building code. The existing chimney would be extended 2 feet above the new ridge line. Let me get to an elevation so you can see that. So this is the existing, and this would be the new elevation. So as you can see, that's the 4-foot height increase. The applicant also proposes to install a new shed dormer in the rear east-facing elevation, which would provide additional head height in the second story. The dormer would have a hardy plank lap siding, matching asphalt shingle roofing, and 2 pairs of 6/1 wooden windows to match 6/1 windows on the ground floor. Lastly, the applicant proposes to install a window well in the front-facing basement level to allow window egress from the basement. The window well would terminate at the ground level on a concrete pad, which would double as the air conditioning footing. There you can see that. The Design Review Committee considered this application at its February 1, 2023 hybrid meeting. Mr. Winchell noted that the proposed increased ridgeline height would change the character of the 1.5-story home from the right-of-way to a more imposing front roof view from the street. Mr. Davis did not object to the application, but recommended that the full commission discuss this item. So the HLRB has approved, let me go through the drawings before I discuss. So this is a view of, it's the home on the left, and it is the final home on the in the row of 3. So the one you see on the right is the middle home. This is a panorama of the 3 homes next to each other. These are images that were previously submitted showing the conditions before the addition. This is the previously stamped images. This is the home on the corner. These were submitted by the designer just to show you the 3 homes and their relative scale. So the HLRB has approved many requests for additions in Maywood since the establishment of the LHD, many as footprint enlargements in the rear. The current proposal would allow for additional usable space without expanding the footprint of the existing home, which staff supports. Even though the subject property is a corner lot, which means the rear is more visible than on an interior lot, the proposed shed dormer will add functional space to the home in a less obtrusive manner than a bump-out addition. However, staff agrees with the DRC that raising the height of the ridgeline by 4 feet may impact the character of the dwelling and its relationship with its triplet neighbours from the right-of-way. Relevant language from the Maywood Design Guidelines includes, in Maywood, the relatively uniform scale of houses is one of the most important elements that contributes to the overall character of the neighborhood. Scale is the relative proportion and size of a building to a pedestrian observer, of a building to neighboring buildings, and of a building to its surroundings. In 2014, the HLRB approved an application of the neighboring sister home, 2315 North Kenmore, which is the middle one, to raise the height of the existing side gable roof and construct a 2-story rear addition, COA 1430. The property's ridgeline was raised by 4 feet to accommodate the rear addition after a 3D SketchUp model was presented in the December 2014 DRC meeting. The Historic Preservation Staff Report from 2014 states, the drawings illustrated that raising the roof would have minimal negative impact to the proportions of the facade or the streetscape due to the existing grade. While staff recognizes that this action was permitted on the neighbouring home in 2014, projects in Maywood are considered on a case-by-case basis. The HPP staff therefore would welcome a discussion about whether the proposed additional 4 feet of height is appropriate in this case, and if a compromise design solution could be reached with a slightly lower ridgeline that could still provide added space, but with a ridgeline closer to the original. The proposed window well will be below grade and should not adversely affect the view of the home from the street, while providing livable space below grade. The proposed materials are appropriate in Maywood as per Appendix C, cement fiberboard siding, Appendix D, Appendix G. Wooden windows are appropriate in Maywood LHD. So I'm going to go again through the drawings, but that concludes the staff report.
Was the earlier project built?
Yes. So when you see this image, it is with the additional 4 feet, the middle one.
No, I'm talking about the corner.
The original
Oh.
COA.
Did they put the,
Yeah,
I don't think
the
they put the
2022
additional,
project.
did they?
They're in the,
They haven't like actually said.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay,
look
that
like
makes
it the last
sense.
time I was by there.
Does the applicant have any additional comments they would like to make about the application?
This is TR and Becky. None at this time. Just looking forward to the discussion. So we can respond as needed.
Are they still planning to build the 2022 part? Too? The part that was
Yes, so
previously approved?
that, as you can see, this is the addition that they had gotten approved, the small part on the bottom, that was previously approved. And so they're going to continue to build that. And then the additional part is the shed dormer that you see there, and that you can see from here from the side. So in that second story, the shed dormer is the new addition, and you can see the window well on the bottom right. So they would be constructing that as well with a window, and so there's proper egress from the basement.
Just this is TR again. Just to add a little bit of color to this, we have started the job. We've excavated some stuff in the interior of the basement for drainage and waterproofing and the like. But ultimately, the reason why we're back in right now is because the building department issued some comments on the building permit application that dealt with the capacity and the size of the existing joists on the second floor. And so in order to conform with code, we have to increase the size of the joist and therefore increase the size of the headroom up on the second floor, so the second floor can be usable and accessible by stairs, which was always the original intent. So that's basically why we're back in right now.
Can we see the front elevation?
The current one or the proposed? This is the
The
proposed.
proposed.
Sorry, Alex, yeah.
So you're saying that the adjacent building that was approved to go 4 feet over the existing ridgeline has been completed?
Yes,
Okay.
and that was completed.
That's what's shown in
Yes.
the section. Gotcha.
Seems like so much more roof showing than the neighboring house.
Which I feel like Andy's mentioned this before, because of the way that the two-dimensional elevations show, it tends to look a little bit sharper than in real life.
It does, but I think you need to look at what the existing house looks like with the change in the roof character. The front gable is blank without windows, and it stays basically in the same position. So it does add to all the houses you can look at. Maybe we can see the whole 3 story.
Because if you look at the neighboring house, it did have the roof raised.
Yeah, we
I
had
know there
some,
was an issue with the gable at one point, but that doesn't, maybe it's just a perspective. It doesn't look quite as much roof showing.
I think also because the street is kind of lower compared to the site. The fourth perspective kind of diminishes that increased gable height. Makes it less of a
The
visible
grade
obstacle.
also goes
Absolutely.
down.
the the center house, we had going through some questions on this years ago, as I recall, and the gable has been increased in its slope is bigger than.
Yes.
I thought they had to take it down.
No, we had some issues. You can see the whole.
Hello, sorry, this is.
Go ahead.
Hello, this is Heidi Fitzharris. I'm sorry I was muted before, so I couldn't talk. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So TR touched on a couple of issues about why we are submitting again for the changes. So it's actually a true hardship because we need to comply with building code. Originally, when they bought the house, the attic or half story was finished, and there was even like a bed up there and whatnot, but it was only accessed by a pull down ladder. So in our project, we proposed to do an interior stair both to the lower level, the basement, and up to the second level, because originally the house right now has no interior stair. So by the time we do that and put an interior stair, then the building code requires us to upgrade everything, even though originally we were just trying to say we're just getting storage up there, because there wasn't an egress window, there wasn't insulation per code, or upgraded to code, and there also wasn't the ceiling height. But by the time we do an interior stair, then it triggers a whole bunch of other requirements that we must meet for building code. So we're actually really up against a hardship here. So by proposing to raise the ridge by 4 feet, we're getting the bare minimum that we need, basically to get 2 bedrooms up there and a bathroom. If you look at that cross section at the very last sheet, that shows the ceiling height, and that is all of the very minimum that we need for code. And we're not increasing the building footprint like we did for Becky and TR's house. That on their house that we did several years ago, we also raised it by 4 feet, but we had a bigger addition. So then obviously then the square footage increased, and we could continue on with the roof lines. But in this house, we're maximizing every space that we can. And not increasing on the footprint, and not increasing on the lot coverage either.
I put this up so you can see on the left-hand side, that addition is kind of visible in the 2 images on the left. The front view of the side addition, so you can see there's that second gable to the middle house, 2315, and then on the bottom you can see that additional addition that Heidi just mentioned, that is on the rear of 2315, that is not planned to be on the rear of 2317.
So I went over and looked at that today, and even if they built it up to the 4 feet, 4 feet increase, it would still be lower than the house next door. The ridge line would be lower. We went to the right. And compared to the houses across the street on both corners, that house is minuscule. So I think it would be hard to suggest that this minor increase would be out of character with the neighborhood. It's just my position.
Heidi, I have a question. Would it be possible to lower, would it be possible to raise it rather, but anything less than 4 feet? I mean, if it were 3 feet or 3.5 feet, would that work in terms of your headroom and clearances?
Okay, can you hear me again?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, it keeps telling me that I'm muted. So, okay, so if you look at that section, we have the stair that goes up, and that's all basically as tight as possible. And then you come up, and then where we have that shower on the second floor, that ceiling height, when it continues to slope down towards the front street, that's the minimum that we can have. So we've already we're trying to keep the roof line low, even though everyone has pointed out though that the middle house was raised by 4 feet several years ago, and that grade, the actual topography is higher. So this house's ridge is still going to be lower than the adjacent house. And as I think it was Dick Woodruff pointed out, the two houses across the street, I sent those pictures in. Those are like 3-story houses right now.
I had another question for Heidi. Would the front of the house, as proposed, even though it's in the two-dimensional drawing, it looks like there's a lot more roof, how would that compare to the house next door?
It would be exactly the same. It's being raised 4 feet, just like.
Right, I understand, but the proportion of the gable to the roof, ridge line of the roof appear the same as in the house next door?
Correct. Yeah. So in the two-dimensional drawing, it just looks bigger than it would when you're in reality, when you're dealing with perspective.
Thank you.
Did the house next door, when they raised their roof, did the front gable get raised as well? Because I feel like that's.
No.
Okay. I was gonna say, I feel like that is the proportion difference.
What about like there's the siding above like the left side window? I mean, is that making us see that differently, or is that, you know how there's a little piece of siding above the left?
Are you changing the pitch of the roof?
I mean, that's not the current project, so we don't really need. I don't know if I would approve how it looks almost like the entire structure goes up with that siding there, but I don't think that's what they're proposing on this project. So.
No, that was a compromise
Okay.
after.
Yeah,
It was
so
under
I
construction.
think it will look even more original.
Yeah,
than the middle.
they
That's some
They-
real
they-
issues.
yeah. had to reduce the size.
I'm gonna get some of that collected.
So.
Okay.
Yes, I
Yeah.
don't have an issue with
Interesting
the
situation.
4-foot raise of the roof. I think that there's more value in retaining the house and the character it does have and making it work for the homeowners today than there is to lower it a foot and make the stairs not usable.
Could I just, the reason I suggested it to vote before the board is I don't disagree with it, but what I'm saying is that basically you had 3 one-story bungalows, and you now got what appear to be from the front at least a 1.5 story, and it's really a 2-story house. So you are changing the real size of the house from the street facade, and that's the reason I thought the board ought to review it and say go along with that, because I think that given what's taking place at the adjoining houses, we're going to have this possibly the same issue down the road on the one on the far right. On the left, that was the original character of all 3 of these houses. So,
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And I think the point about the grade will also help that it won't feel as tall because it's lower. So I would support approving it as proposed.
The house on the right appears, it has a shed dormer. And it appears to have a larger window. Looks more like it's living space at the current time.
I also agree with what Rebecca and Dick have said as well. I think is probably the best ideal option for the actual homeowner, given what they have. And I think also given the 4 feet raise seems relatively reasonable in comparison to some of the other homes in the area as well.
Bob, you have any?
Bob, come lately. Apologize. They wouldn't let me out of class. The only issue I'm having at this point is if this body approved what happened in the middle house, how are we slowing down the one on the left? What justifies our denying the one on the left when we already years ago allowed the one in the middle?
Has the one on the right, you mean?
The one in the middle.
The one in the middle?
So I would say from a style perspective, it's because we're not we're not asking to deny it, it's just that because we review homes on a case-by-case basis, we need to analyze why, the argument for which we support this, because otherwise, say, one of the very tall houses across the street came to us and they wanted 4 additional feet, we would, without an argument about each individual home, we may need to then legally approve 4 additional feet on every house ad infinitum if they came to us and said, well, you allowed it next door. And so then we would end up with 3 stories that come.
The next door in this case is 1 on a set of 3.
Right.
You know, so it's not, that house across the street this way or the other way doesn't have anything to do with these. So I'm having trouble understanding why we would want to deny these people from doing whatever looks realistic.
Right.
And is somewhat compatible and sympathetic to what was done in the house next door.
Yes.
Which is of the same style.
I think it's a matter of not saying, okay, we've raised the roof once 4 feet, that therefore everyone who wants a 4-foot increase in the ridge line gets it. But I think considering the house itself and how it fits into its environment, and this is not necessarily a precedent, we are considering it on a case-by-case basis. We're looking at various features of it that differ from the house next door, and so it's not just an automatic denial and approval, but I think a careful consideration of all the factors is what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a good point. And just sort of take it a step further, I think it would be really unrealistic to continue to have a house that has a basement and has a ground and has an upstairs, yet has no interior stairs in the 21st century. It's just.
Well, the building code issues, I think, are something that make this a different situation. And, I think we have to take those into account. Otherwise, they can't do what they can't remodel the house in a way that's going to be usable, and that's not necessarily the standard for historic preservation. I know, but I think that is something we do consider.
Great discussion. It's kind of the point. It's kind of the position, or not the solution, rather. The discussion is moving along sort of how I kind of hoped it would. I kind of wanted to really drill in specifically to this particular house, in particular case, and sort of make our decision based on that, and not kind of just do a sort of precedent setting example here. Because it's very specific. This particular house in this particular case at this time. I appreciate everybody's input for this. And I think with that, there's more discussion. We might like to move to the proof. Oh, wait, actually, sorry, I'll do that.
Defer to you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So, I moved that HALRB approved COA 22-14A to raise the ridge line of the home by 4 feet. Install a new shed dormer in the rear, and install a window well in front facing basement level. Let me just make sure I'm saying. I did that. I think that probably gets that. I mean, let me see where not. Let me try it again. Actually, so I moved that HALRB approved COA 22-14A to raise the ridge line of the home by 4 feet. Install a new shed dormer in the rear, install a window well in the front facing basement level. Doing the roof ridge line raise is specific. The roof ridge line raise is in accord with maybe guidelines which aim to preserve the relative scale of houses in the neighborhood.
Okay. Did you catch that, Michael? Okay.
Don't ask me to repeat it.
Or me.
I think we got it. You're good.
I'll second. Thank you.
Okay. Please say yes if you support the motion as presented. Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Foster? Yes. Ms. Ham?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Medden?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Winchell,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodruff.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Fantastic. So thanks, applicant. Thank you for your time today.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you from the Schmidts.
Good night.
Night.
Okay, the next item is COA 23-03. This is a Columbia Pike form-based code project located at 2910 Columbia Pike involving the historic facade of the Arlington Hardware Building, which the HLRB has purview over. So in June 2004, the Columbia Station project, also known as the Halstead Building, was the first Columbia Pike form-based code project involving a use permit approval for a large residential building with ground floor retail and the preservation of the existing historic facade of the Arlington Hardware Building, which is the subject of this current application. And here you can see in this image that's going to stay for a little while is of the, I don't know how to get rid of this, I'm sorry. This way. Historic behind it, there is a thing. Imagine a big building behind it with many stories behind it, and also to the left, which has one of my favorite restaurants, Lost Dog Cafe. All right, so just so you know, the HLRB has heard of this project in the past. As per the form-based code requirements, the HLRB granted a series of COAs for both the Arlington Hardware Building's facade renovation and for the construction of the new residential building that was done in 2004. But also in 2009, at the time, the P. Brennan's Irish Pub restaurant owner moved into the Arlington Hardware Building space, brought mezzanine modifications as an informational item to the HLRB meeting to seek their support of the project. The applicant at that time worked with staff and the HLRB to develop an overall design for the restaurant that aligned with the overall purpose and intent of the form-based code and the architectural style for the area. And for that project in 2009, the HLRB unanimously voted to endorse plans for the interior, determining that the mezzanine would not detract from the building's historic authenticity and, in fact, only improve its exterior appearance. But the Brennan's restaurant closed in 2017, and the two-level space has remained vacant for the past 5 years. Just to kind of go over a little bit of history, the Arlington Hardware Building, which again is identified as a historic facade in form-based code, it was constructed around 1920. The hardware store opened in 1931 and was operated by David Eisen and members of his family until the business closed in 2004. And just so you know, there were alterations done to the historic facade. In the past, in 1996, there was an electrical fire that required the building to be renovated. And we believe that's a time when window fenestration patterns changed. We do have some historic photographs. Preston, the right? Preston, there you go. Okay, so here is the Arlington Hardware Building pre-1996, because it still has a lot of its signage. You can also see the windows on the second story, which are 6/1 wood windows. Those, as well as you can see that there's been some changes to the first story. It has a type of cladding treatment that has like this metal clapboard type look thing going to it. And the storefront windows are these large glazed window panes. Thank you. And this is when, I believe this is after 1996, around the time when it was kind of transitioning from David Eisen to his daughter, who opened it up as kind of a garden home center, and had that until the business closed in 2004 with the redevelopment project that was happening. So let's talk about the application. The applicant and the new restaurant owner is proposing to modify the first story, the building's historic facade. The proposal includes removing the large plate glass windows that are located on both sides of the recessed main entry and demolishing the exterior wall below the windows. The applicant proposes to install a bifold window, which will be supported by a track system that would allow the windows to fold inside the interior of the restaurant space. So the DRC considered this application at its February 1st, 2023 hybrid meeting, and after discussing the project, determined that enlarging the window openings was not appropriate, but bifold windows that match the existing window opening would work. The applicant indicated that after the meeting had closed and we were contacting them the next day, the applicant indicated that they had already
purchased the custom-built bifold window system and requested that their application be placed on the discussion agenda. So staff's recommendation is we do not recommend the approval of the subject application as submitted. As we showed some of the historic photographs, kind of indicating some of the changes that had happened, and that after the 1996 electrical fire, it had been renovated and reopened as a gift and garden shop until it closed in 2004. And both those photographs kind of show the first story fenestration pattern changing, but there was still the large plate glass windows that you're kind of seeing right now here in the drawings. So the reason we're not approving the project is because, or we do not recommend approval, is because according to the guidance provided in the form-based code, we're supposed to follow the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And that's really the most guidance we have in the form-based code on this. We determined that the subject application does not comply with standards number 2, number 9, and number 10 of the Secretary of Interior standards. Standard number 2, enlarging the existing window openings would change the spatial relationship of the building's first story configuration, which is a character defining feature of the historic facade. Standard number 9, enlarging the existing window openings would be an exterior alteration that would destroy historic features and spatial relationships that characterize the property. And lastly, standard number 10, the demolition of the exterior wall below the existing windows would affect the essential form and integrity of the historic facade. And if you had seen in my report, we did recognize, though, that historic commercial buildings, it's necessary for them to adapt to the spaces and the needs of future owners and tenants. Although the staff does not consider the existing fixed windows or their existing fenestration pattern to be character defining features, staff does consider the window and door sizing and spatial relationship on the facade to be character defining features. Staff would support a bifold window or another type of operational window that would fit within the existing window openings. And that concludes the staff report.
Can I make a comment? Leave this photo. One of the other problems with dropping the windows all the way to the sidewalk is that's a very narrow sidewalk. There's no parking on the street. It's only 2 lanes and then direction. And if they open this up to the sidewalk level, you're going to have spill out onto the sidewalk, and it's going to become a real hazard. If this was sidewalk, a much wider sidewalk where you could spill out into the street or into the sidewalk, it would be another issue perhaps. But I think the fact that there's such a narrow sidewalk here reinforces the idea that if you drop the windows all the way down, you're just going to have more problems with the pedestrian traffic on the side.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Winchell.
Is the applicant, I'm here to speak.
That's a good question.
Mr. Khan? Mr. Raheel?
Yes, good evening.
Oh, hi.
Yes. Yes, hi. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So the only thing that I want to add is that the air circulation and this restaurant space, we confirmed everything with the zoning months in advance, and that is the reason the doors were already purchased and they're already in the storage, and this is what was brought in a couple of weeks ago. Before that, everybody in the zoning said that you guys are good to go, you guys can go ahead, do it. There are no conditions for the facade until February. So now my understanding is that this, for the electric issue that happened in 1996, the whole windows, the front was changed. There's a concrete slab currently, which is 18 inches below the window. So they recommended that we can still do it in the current opening space, but as you guys can see, we have nothing. There's no space in the front where we can put any chairs or tables or anything. There's no patio, and this place is literally hidden. So unless somebody walks in to know what this place is, I'm like, you really can't tell. So our main reason to lease that space, that before we leased it, we made sure everything with the zoning that this is okay for us to do it, and they confirmed it. So I'm literally stuck. I'm like, I spent so much money into this place, and even the doors itself cost me literally over 20,000, and they're sitting, and I can't even modify these doors. So I just don't know what to do, seriously.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
What's our authority here under the Columbia Pike Form-Based Code? Is this an historic designated building? What is the situation?
So the form-based code commercial area identifies different historic buildings or historic facades that the HLRB has kind of authority over, with providing a COA for it. And this is identified as a historic facade in the commercial form-based code. And therefore, that means that we have purview over how that historic facade is preserved. If you think of the lovely projects we've been seeing lately with the form-based code, it is up to the interpretation of how the HLRB wants to apply what a historic facade is.
I'm a bit troubled by the whole zoning thing. I mean, this is not the first time this has happened, where zoning has told somebody something that is just not right. I don't know if there's anything that you can do about it.
From what I understand, Mr. Khan has had conversations with zoning over the past few months. The project was brought to our attention on January 12th of this year, where zoning was working with the customer because they were proposing the changes with the windows, new sliding windows. And when that kind of exterior changes were being proposed, zoning was doing their research, discovered that it was a historic facade, and then contacted us to see, is this a type of project that needs to receive HLRB review?
I would like to add something. So I personally spoke with Mr. Gomez at the zoning department when we literally first signed the lease back in November 2022. And then afterwards, I spoke to the gentleman again in May of 2021. Yes, last year, May. So I spoke to him again, and I had a lengthy conversation with Mr. Gomez, and he said he double-checked everything. This building is a 2004. That's when it was constructed, the residential. There are no conditions with the facade. He explained everything, that if there was any conditions, I would have to go through you guys. But luckily, I don't have to do this. So then I confirmed with him. I was like, sir, is it okay for me to purchase these doors? Because these doors are going to take 3-4 months for them to deliver these doors. And he said, yes, Mr. Khan, you can go ahead, do it. There is no problem whatsoever. And then after everything, I purchased the doors, sent the drawings in, and that's when I had a call from him in 3 weeks ago, literally 3 or 4 weeks ago, that, hey, he made a mistake. He made an error. This is a historical landmark. And I was like, sir, I'm stuck. I'm like, I don't understand this. I'm like, I already got the space. I spent so much money, literally all my savings into this place, just because I love the place, but I was able to open the front, at least in the summertime. And he's like, well, I made a mistake. I made an error. So I don't know what to do. I'm like,
Thank you, Mr. Khan, for providing more details on that, on the discussions we've been having with zoning. We have been very sensitive to trying to be getting all the information that we can about your project. We knew that this would be brought up during the discussion, and we talked to zoning, the zoning staff member you're speaking of, as well as leadership in zoning, and wanted to just find out again how this miscommunication ended up occurring. And from what they indicated to us is that they do not have discussions about things like go ahead and purchase certain features or materials or windows or doors, and that was not something that they do until you receive an official permit from them, and they have not issued you any permit. From what we understand, you have not received any permit from zoning.
Okay. Well, obviously, Mr. Gomez is not gonna take accountability, but that's fine. But my only thing is that since this is a historical landmark, what I understood, but the changes were made in 1996. The new concrete slab was added, so we're not trying to break anything that's historical. Like when the changes were already made, and what I'm having a hard time understanding is that it would be a different story if there was no change whatsoever and everything was historical. But if everything was changed in 1996, this is recently. So what seems to be the issue now? If I just because we're just talking about the concrete slab, which is 18 inches on the bottom. So I'm just trying to understand this. How is that a historical when it was recently changed?
I'm happy to address that, Mr. Khan. So I understand your questions about we're not replacing historic material, but based on the changes that were done in 1996, we do know that or at least if anything, we don't even have to really talk about what happened in 1996. We can talk about what happened in 2004, because this historic facade did have the windows replaced at the second story, at the first story. We know that that has happened. But the pattern that you're seeing now, the fenestration pattern, the storefront window sizes that we're looking at, that has the kind of the larger window plus the transom, that has been consistent, at least that we've been able to see prior to 1996. And so that is the aspect of the facade that we're trying to protect. And then with the changes that you're proposing to kind of create a full-size bifolding window space that enlarges that window opening, the HLRB needs to decide if that is something that they don't want to allow, or if they want to protect that, or if they feel that because they aren't dealing with historic material below the windows, that the windows have been replaced, they can decide what they feel is appropriate with this historic facade.
Yes, ma'am.
I think, thank you, Mr. Khan, for your input. I think at this point, I think we'll continue this discussion sort of in a round robin format. So Jim, start off. So what's your take on this particular project?
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate that there was a miscommunication, but I think that I support keeping the original fenestration pattern. I wonder if there's some way to modify what he has already ordered. It seems like cutting it, making it shorter shouldn't be a huge issue, but you know, again, I don't know.
No, ma'am. I apologize to cut you off, but I spoke with 3 different companies already. The problem is that it's aluminum foil, not foil, I'm sorry, aluminum. Well, to cut it short, that every company that I spoke to, they're saying there's nothing that could be done. So either basically the doors that I already have, and they're just waste if I don't get an approval. I have to go and order the new ones and obviously spend all that money again. So they cannot modify them.
Okay, thank you. I would think that the ones you ordered might be able to be sold, but in any event, I mean, I'm thinking of a restaurant that I visited in Boston that has a similar configuration of windows like this with a solid portion on the bottom, and then they have the bifolds above, and it works really well. So I think that, you know, I'm sorry, I really am. I think maybe there's a way to recoup your losses on the original order, but and I would support bifold windows in the size of the original window openings, or these windows that are shown.
Not to propose it as an alternative, just to like pitch it out there and see. if the bottom part is not original and then the Department of Interior standard does dictate that new additions or replacements should either be made in kind or be distinct from the original, I wonder if it makes sense to use the already purchased doors, not as a reward for buying them without a permit, but then to frost the bottom to maintain kind of that visual line, but make sure it's distinct, as a way to somehow kind of bridge that historic portions, but still allow kind of continued use.
I think, and I know this was something that we talked about in the DRC meeting and suggested that same restaurant in Boston that had the bifold windows. But I think looking around at the neighborhood and the surrounding buildings, there is not a precedent of floor-to-ceiling doors or windows in any of the retail. They're all have that 18 to 24 inch base. And I think being able to see the historic photos between the DRC meeting and now is really helpful. I do think there's value in preserving the original fenestration opening. I would support deviating and doing the bifold windows as sympathetic to the reason of needing airflow in the restaurant and the change of the use. But I think given the fact that those bifold doors are not code required and cannot be used per code, and that it's such a narrow sidewalk, I don't think that there is a case for deviating from the historic facade.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well. It would be out of character for all the other buildings around there, especially on Columbia Pike. And I also would support that as well in terms of the bifold windows and potential option due to the airflow issues. But I do think that the fenestration issues that are being proposed by the applicant would be completely out of character for this area, especially also given the short sidewalk that other people have mentioned as well. I walk past this restaurant all the time. Dick?
Yeah, I agree with both of you on that. I don't know. I don't really quite understand what the point of having a pole to the ground bifold door is. If there's nothing, just for air circulation, what's the point, really? It's sort of unfortunate what's happened with the zoning group, but I think if the applicant is confident that he was somehow misled on it, should take it up with zoning and talk to his lawyers.
I'm going to agree with Dick, but I really liked Alex's suggestion as an alternative.
To clarify, I'm not recommending. Just trying to pitch ideas.
It's creative.
Yeah.
That's an alternative.
I just had a couple comments. I was just kind of trying on my own to see if there should have been something that maybe the applicant should have picked up on in his own research, because I do think he should probably be relying on the city. He should have looked. But I do want to say, very quick research doesn't pop this up as historic. You have to really dig into the Columbia Pike plan, which isn't ideal. So I think that might just be a recommendation for in the future for zoning to really make that more clear. Because if it wasn't in the Columbia Pike plan and it was a historic district, I think just a simple Google search, the applicant could have figured that out.
I think probably the issue is that there were two different time phases of the plan. And so if you get the second phase of the plan, it's not going to be in there. It's in the first, because it was the first.
The commercial code.
The commercial code.
Yeah, and it's just in the very, if you just kind of look up your zoning on the Arlington site, which is a very simplistic thing, and you should dig into it much further, but because it's its own plan, it's not even shown. It's, you have to go to a different place. So that I don't think changes my final opinion. But I did have a further question. So I am just really surprised. I'm a little confused, but I think everyone's saying that these current windows size has never been changed? This was the size when it was built?
We can't confirm that. We are only able to locate historic photographs from what looks like to be from the 90s. So this was after the electrical fire happened. This is before.
Okay, and I'm not an architect at all, but I mean, these look kind of like 50s windows to me or something. So that would be my only reason to maybe give this a second thought, because I don't think these are probably the original windows.
We know that the windows, the actual windows in the historic facade now are non-historic replacement windows. But the fenestration pattern that was put in 2004 is the same as what we're seeing, at least in the 90s. We don't know if that's what it looked like before 1997.
We do also have some text, a description of people visiting to see the window displays, because the windows were used for display in the 30s. So we have like not images, but written language saying that people would go and look at the window displays. And so those were identified as like display windows.
Okay. Okay. I guess.
I think we moved to for the 90s, and I'm pretty sure that they were at least this size at that point.
Yeah, it's a 1920 building.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't know what the windows really look like in 1920.
Correct.
But
are we sort of confident that the size of the openings have been consistent?
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
They were
compared to historic hardware stores.
Is that the oldest picture?
This is the colored one is actually the oldest, this one.
Yeah.
So yes, compared to historic other hardware stores, this is the fenestration that we would have seen. We might have seen smaller just because at that time it was hard to make sheets of glass that were any bigger than this. So in all likelihood, the largest tempered windows are from the 50s, but anytime before that it might have been smaller, but in all likelihood, most display windows for commercial spaces were this size.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. Okay, so yeah, I think mine were basically just comments that I do think we need to work with zoning to make sure it's very clear when someone needs to come to us. But I do actually, so I had to do a two-step process on my quick little search, and I'm pretty sure I did find that it was historic overlay at Columbia Pike in the time I was sitting here. So, and if this is similar to the openings, then yes, I would agree. We should keep these openings.
Anything else?
I think we were given to understand in the DRC meeting and I think our recommendation was basically this comes before the board because we thought that the type of windows we could sympathize because of the width of the sidewalk being very narrow, that there's no option of putting tables outside the front of the restaurant, which would be more typical. And appreciating the fact they want to get some fresh air into it. We thought the windows that were proposed, if they were set on the same sill, if you will, raised, I think it's about 24 inches, would be reasonable, but that it needed to be brought to the full board because of the form-based code and the hassles. I'm surprised, quite frankly, that they actually went ahead and said this is so. They did not say, there was nothing said about the fact they had purchased these windows at the DRC meeting.
Well, the applicant didn't attend.
No. So, I think it's unfortunate, and it's something that maybe Arlington County needs to talk with both zoning and historic preservation and resolve this issue in part, but I certainly don't think that the windows to the sidewalk level should be approved.
Carmela, any comments? Carmela?
Carmela, are you still on the line? If you're speaking.
Yes, I am. No, I don't have a comment.
So essentially hearing everybody's comments, I think it's, and I would also agree, I think this, it's unfortunate sort of what's transpired here in terms of sort of the order of purchase and sort of the order of approval. But I'll kind of echo what others have said. I think that it would be inappropriate rather per the interior standards to allow a full height window at this location. So I think that sort of given sort of everything that's been discussed, and so I think ready to make a motion unless there's anything else for the order here. So, sorry, go ahead.
So I have one question. I apologize. So just to understand this correctly, so if I'm able to basically order new windows, but so you guys are saying I can put the windows, but in the current opening space only.
We haven't decided yet.
Yeah, we would need to come back and we would review it, but based on what I've heard, I would say it's a better opportunity for that to be approved than for the current windows to be approved. I can say that much.
And that meeting would be on March 1st. So say you could get the documentation together by by 1 week before. So 1 week ahead of March 1, which I wish I knew what that day was. I could put you on the DRC agenda, and then you would know that day if you're going to be placed on the consent or the discussion agenda, which would give you a lot more information about whether you need to adapt that design and come back with some more options. We also recommend coming forward with options. So if you were interested in the bifolds, but also would consider sliding or would consider overhead, we recommend coming in with as many options as possible so that the HLRB can give you a full understanding.
I understand.
Just quickly, did your architect, I see it's stamped, recommend you purchase these?
No, man. So like I said before, I know Mr. Gomez is recalling. So in the original plan, when I leased this space, when I spoke with the zoning, my original plan was to push the windows and the door like at least 6 feet in the restaurant so I can have a patio outside. And at that time, they told me that same exact thing, that there is no conditions on a facade and you're able to do that. So, but when I looked at the cost to do all that, it was just way too much. So then I decided to do a bifold, and I called again the zoning and confirmed, and again I was told the same exact thing. So when they said I can go ahead and do it, there's no problem, there's nothing whatsoever, I went and ordered and placed the order and paid all this and got the doors in, and then submitted the drawings to them to get an approval, because technically I was given a go, be like, yeah, you can do it, just have the architect and engineer to submit the plans. And when we did that, and that's when he came back and recanted his statement and be like, hey, I made a mistake. And his exact words are exactly as a quote, I made a mistake. I did not look.
Mr. Khan, this is Lauren Ferris. I wanted to just kind of also mention, if you are considering, so first off, we basically just said that if you want to explore window options within the window openings, come back for the to the DRC on March 1st. We would need that material from you by next Wednesday. And that would be reviewed, and they would determine what would be the next best step for you. That being said, just so that you're completely clear with this building, any changes that are being made to the exterior needs to come to this board, to the HLRB. That also includes signage. Have you had signage installed?
No, not yet. I was planning on submitting an application next week.
Okay, well, here's your, so you know that we would need to see that as well. So if anybody,
For the signage, I have to submit the application to you guys first.
yes. So if you were to
So,
come, so you have a plan already kind of in play with the design of the signs, and if you're thinking of coming back with potential windows, I would recommend you try and just get that all at once so that we can get you everything that you would need as quickly as possible. And I just want to mention to the board, which I imagine the chair is going to ask for a vote, and it will be on with the HLRB. I just want to let everybody know that we will be having a discussion with zoning tomorrow to let them know what the outcome is of this evening, to also to understand what happened with communication, because it's been a while, at least I haven't seen it since I've been here. So we just want to make sure that we understand what did happen, and I also do like Ms. Meyer's recommendation of trying to make it as easy as possible for residents and business owners to be able to identify in the documents what is going on with the properties that they're in. I know I can find it, but I also look at them every day. So I think that it's a good point to raise to the appropriate people. Thank you.
You know, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this isn't the first time we've had this issue with zoning.
No, it's not.
And an issue in Maywood just last year prompted a meeting between zoning and us. And you were on the call, I believe, weren't you?
I don't remember what that was.
It was the 21st Avenue shed in the backyard.
Garage. The BZA?
And it had to do, yeah.
Yes, that was with the Board of Zoning Appeals,
That was
yes.
a different.
What's the difference?
Well, the BCA is their commission, kind of like you all are the commission. It was
Okay.
not with zoning staff per se.
Okay, all right.
But we don't want one mistake to happen. So we want to make sure that we've done our due diligence to make sure that whatever happened doesn't happen again.
We need to make sure the internal processes are working like they're supposed to, and there's clearly something didn't quite go right this time, so we will follow up with zoning and do our best to try to prevent this from happening again.
I have one more comment, not to get too into the details, but maybe to give the applicant a little advice on what he's looking for. I don't know if anyone was looking at the smaller window and then the larger window, but it looks like on their drawings that it's just one big window. So I didn't know if.
I think he's not touching the final.
He's not
window.
touching
Is the outside
not the
okay,
house.
so this is just the.
Yes, the ones on the end are not.
Because that would be something I would have a problem with if that was missing.
Based on these.
The ones beyond the vertical.
Okay, so the bifold, we're only talking about those inner windows. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should probably make that clear in the motion that it's just the two larger windows.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting you pointed out, because is that the full elevation then?
I know.
So there are
Big
brake
issue.
lines. I think there are brake lines on either side there, so.
Oh.
It's like not in the contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be helpful when someone shows you the front
Yeah.
elevation that they show you the whole building.
Yeah. So with that, we'll make a motion. So let's see here. So I move that HLRB deny the proposed Columbia Pike form-based code modifications at 2910 Columbia Pike. Their proposed modification does not comply with standards 2, 9, and 10 of the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. That kind of says it all, but are any thoughts or amendments, gentlemen? Thank you.
I'm not sure it's actually necessary to put it in the motion.
So we need a second on the motion.
Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Any other comments on it before we vote?
Let's call the roll.
Okay, please respond yes if you support the motion as proposed. Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Ham?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Medin,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Winchell,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodruff.
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimous.
Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Khan, but thank you for your time this evening, and look forward to, you coming back with new proposal in the coming months.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, this is our final discussion agenda item for the evening. Before I start, can I confirm, I believe Mr. Uckard's on the line. Do we have the RJ West or Holly West? Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm here. RJ West is here.
Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, so this is a submittal of the final door schedule for an ongoing rehabilitation project for the Sears home at 3421 21st Avenue North. Constructed circa 1933, it is most likely an example of the Wexford model. In January 2022, the HLRB approved COA 2131 for the demolition of an existing 1980s era rear addition and construction of a 2 1/2 story rear addition with center patio. In June 2022, the HLRB approved COA 2131A to scale back the initial project to only renovate the historic house and remove the 80s addition. In October 2022, the HLRB approved some window changes in the home and the garage. In the current application, the applicant proposes to modify the doors in COA 2131. So the front door would be, sorry, these are the previously stamped plans, so you see where the doors are. And let me pull up, okay, so the front door, there we go, would change from a proposed 10-light door to a panel door with 2 rows of 3 clear glass lights over 2 vertical solid fir wooden panels. The side and rear doors of the house would change from the proposed 10-light door to a 15-light door, and the basement door would change from a proposed 10-light door to a paneled door with 3 rows of clear light glass lights. The applicant is also submitting their final garage door choice. For the new construction 2-car garage, the applicant is proposing 2 La Madre double doors from the overhead door company in solid cedar with 3 clear glass lights in the top of each door. The DRC committee, well, I don't know why I said that. It's written this way. The DRC considered this application at its February 1st, 2023 hybrid meeting. The DRC had no questions or concerns and placed this item on the consent agenda. However, the applicant had submitted the garage door brochure before the deadline, but had forgotten to mark the preferred style, so it was not reviewed by the DRC. Therefore, this application was moved to the discussion agenda. In terms of staff recommendation, we recommend approval of the subject application. The proposed doors will be solid wood and clear glass, which is appropriate per Chapter 5 of the Maywood Design Guidelines. And the garage door could have been approved per Appendix G, but it is for a 2-car garage, and we only have approval to, or we only have the designation to approve 1-car garage doors. And that's what I have for you. Does the applicant have anything to add?
Yes, I do, actually, Serena. Thank you. The plan calls for 2 individual doors, not a double door.
Well, it's yes, but it's 2 double doors. You know how it looks like 2 doors? I think I said 2 double doors.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what you said. Yes, you're okay. Fair enough. Yeah. It just, that picture unfortunately showed a double garage door. It's 2 doors that look like that I guess look like double doors. I hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
So with that, any comments from anybody?
The problem is, we just didn't see the garage doors.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that it's a new garage. Personally, I'd rather see real double doors that open outward instead of overhead doors. But the garage is a new garage. So, I think I recommend that we approve everything as submitted, including the garage doors.
All right, so any other comments? I'll make a motion. approved, so I move that HLRB be approved on COA 21-31C. Submission of door choices for renovation. Any seconds?
Okay. So please say yes if you support the motion. Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Ham?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Medin?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Wenschel?
Yes.
And Mr. Woodruff?
Yes.
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting this evening.
Yes, thank you for the wait.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to the chairman's report. I just have one quick sort of unique one. So a couple Fridays ago, I spoke with our county board liaison, Libby Garvey. It was an interesting conversation. She shared some thoughts about preservation here and there. But one sort of I guess thing that was interesting, very interesting actually. She mentioned the idea of the HLRB sort of taking on or sort of discussing or thinking more about Arlington's prehistory. That's something that we're not really tasked with, obviously, on sort of a day-to-day basis. We're more of an architectural review board. However, HPP staff has told me that potentially an archaeological sort of program or person could be part of the future of HPP in the future. So potentially there's some, if anybody's interested, it's something we want to pursue. It's something that we could take on in some way in the future. That's kind of one to throw it out there. I thought that was one interesting point that she made. That's kind of one to share with you all.
Could I have one follow-up to that? In terms of the HLRB capacity, you're allowed to have up to 15 members. And so you have 2 vacancies right now. So something to think about going forward, getting some archaeological expertise on the commission might be a way to also explore topics that we don't normally discuss. So,
Or indigenous expertise, if we were to find someone who identifies indigenous heritage.
And last, the county budget process is sort of an ongoing thing. And actually, I guess the county departments will be receiving a draft budget. I think it seems like next Tuesday, and then now sort of kick off in the county budgeting sort of discussion, sort of horse trading process. So as part of that, HLRB staff and also leadership, also the board leadership rather, we going before, I guess, the county manager staff and so forth, and also putting forth our case to our funding. And one sort of particularly important part is that the historic preservation master plan is sort of at the finish line. And any sort of funding really could harm is sort of being finished this year. So anybody has any recommendations or knows anybody or just kind of any thoughts on that, it's kind of keep that in the back of your mind for the budgeting process. It'll be very important that we get the funding to continue and get this thing finished. A lot of hard work on it, so that's all.
So that's a great segue to the staff report. We have a few things to mention. I just wanted to remind everyone, please, we would appreciate your help in trying to promote the Historic Preservation Fund. We've talked about it a few times at the last few meetings. There's been a lot of really good community interest in it. So we know we've got some applications in progress, and we've been meeting with people who have questions and want to discuss projects. So there is still plenty of time for folks to apply. So please, send people to us if you hear of friends and neighbors and others who might be interested or who have some interesting projects. We'd love to talk to them. Next, wanted to mention a few things about the Historic Preservation Master Plan. As our chairman mentioned, we are hopefully in the home stretch. I've been trying to be better about giving you all regular updates. The latest update is we are still waiting on the final, I shouldn't say, the full complete draft that is graphically designed. We're waiting on that from our consultant. and we need to get that through county leadership over the next couple of weeks. And our goal would be to release the draft of the plan to the public in March. And to that end, we want to make sure that you, as the Historic Preservation Commission for the county, have the opportunity to learn about the plan, understand the goals and recommendations that are in there, and to really kind of get on board to start helping us advocate for approval of the plan later this year. And so to that end, we are working with our consultant to arrange a special informational session just for the HLRB. So it would be a public meeting. So anyone, like this would be your opportunity to learn the draft.
Can you mute them?
Yes.
I
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so this would be your opportunity to learn about the draft from the consultant team, to ask questions, to really kind of study the document, and then we would be bringing the document back to you at a future date, but this would give you kind of a first glance at what is in that draft. And we wanted to propose a special meeting date separate from a regular HLRB meeting because we can't predict at any given time how many COAs might be on an agenda, what site plans coming forward, what historic markers coming. And so we really want to make sure that we allow sufficient time for you all to learn about the plan and get your questions answered. So with that, we've been working with the consultant to tentatively schedule that special session in April, the week following our regular meeting. So we were hoping to do that on Wednesday, April 26th. Probably same time, 6:30, we can work that out, but we wanted to kind of take a quick straw poll to see how many of you would be available to attend that. And we would offer it, hybrid, so if you can't physically come in here into the room, that's fine. But we did want to make sure that there was sufficient time, which is why we felt it warranted its own special meeting. So just at first glance, putting you all on the spot, does that seem like a doable date, either for in-person or remote? You won't be voting, you don't need to take any action, it's really for you to learn about the plan. I'm seeing a lot of head nodding. Yeah.
I'll just say, I can't.
Are we recording it?
But that's.
I mean, I just know if I can speak freely at that meeting.
Yes. We look forward to your commentary, Bob.
Yes, our meetings still have to be streamed. And I actually don't know if this is, since it's not regulatory, I don't know if it needs to be recorded, but it certainly needs to be streamed.
It will be streamed because you all are convening, and once you're all in a room, you're doing business. Even though you won't be voting, we'll save that to like late summer, early fall. But we want to make sure that you have ample time to understand what's in the draft. Okay. Well, we'll coordinate as it gets closer. Was it?
It's a maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, we have some time. I just wanted to make sure there, most of you could be there. And so we'll get things firmed up with the consultant and then report back and let you know about that date. So there will be ample opportunity to learn about the plan through the spring, through the summer, and we're hoping to get it to the board in the fall. And so I'm going to turn things over to Michael now to talk about some additional ways, once you learn all the goodies that are in there, of how you can remain involved in helping advocate for the plan.
So hopefully you got my email earlier this month asking for some volunteer assistance at our open house event. So I'm going to just reiterate some points I made in that email and make the call again for help at that event. So it's happening Saturday, May 6th from 12 to 3. And it is going to be one of the biggest events that our program will be putting on as part of our engagement plan for the master plan. So we're going to have a lot of other events happening, but this is really the big one. And it is being held at Central Library's auditorium. It's open to the entire community, so we're really hoping we have a good turnout. We're going to do a lot of promotion for it. We ask that you all definitely promote it within your own circles, friends, neighbors, family. We really encourage everybody to come. But because it's one of our biggest events, we really need help with volunteering. So the event itself is going to have a lot of different learning stations. Most of them are going to touch upon the plan and kind of how we approach preservation in the county. We're also going to have a lot of stations that talk about, that are spaces for our partners, both internal within the like county departments, but then also external partnerships, so they get to share some of their information as well and how we work together. But for you all, the specific role we could really use some assistance with is there's two. One is floaters. It's exactly what it sounds like. You just walk around, you talk to people, you see if anyone has any questions. The other one are table sitters. We have two tables that we could utilize some of your help at. One is the welcome table, exactly what it sounds like. And the other one is the HALRB table. So we want to use this opportunity for you all to explain to the community what you do, who you are, that type of thing. So all that being said, if you guys could get back to me, if you think you could attend, even if you could just attend for an hour or two, you do not have to be there for the whole event. We're going to be there all day, so if you want to help set up or break down, we also welcome that. But just go ahead and let me know if you're available, and that would be perfect. And thank you for those who already have. It's much appreciated.
And then if you can't join us on May 6th, there will be opportunities to do other engagement with us. We're going to farmers markets and a whole bunch of other things. County fair, we're going to go out with a bang at the county fair. I know some people really like the funnel cake and there's other, food opportunities. So we've got lots planned over these next couple months. So there will be more chances to volunteer beyond just the open house. So just keep that in mind. And that was everything we had in the staff report. I do want to not forget to do the quick poll to just so we can make sure that we have enough people in person for March. And that meeting, your next meeting will be March 15th. So everyone quickly get out your calendars.
The Ides of March.
The Ides of March.
Right. I sit with my back to it.
Yeah. No, I think it's the rotation is they're going to have somebody else on a different commission this year.
So with that, I'll just do roll call really quickly and let's just let me know if you can be here in person. John?
Yes.
Amari?
Yes.
Alex?
Possibly.
Okay. Carmela? Okay. Joan?
No.
Okay. Bob?
Probably it's spring break. I'll either be here or South Carolina, so.
Okay. Rebecca?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Andy?
No, I'll be in Eastern Europe.
Okay. And Dick?
Yes.
Great.
Do we have 1, 2,
Just be at
4, 5 confirmed.
Very weak. At that point, it's maybe silent sky.
3 maybes.
Okay.
So 2
It's a play.
Okay, and I'll check with Mark and Robert.
It's at.
Well, thanks everybody. First, anything else for the order? Hearing nothing, we'll call the meeting. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. If you want to see a play that has a relationship to historic preservation, check out Lettuce and Lovage at the Theater of Alexandria.
But you can
Costumes.
welcome you.
It's actually